You're here. Welcome to the Masterminding Success podcast. They say if you want to be successful in business and in life, then surround yourself with successful people. So pull up a seat. The mastermind is about to begin.
Hey, glad you could join us for another episode of the Masterminding Success podcast. We're your hosts, Keith Wheeler
and Nuria Corby.
And what are we talking about today, Nuria?
Today we're going to talk about something completely different, and we're going to talk about beyond book publishing. So everything we do apart from book publishing, what do we do to get away from this business, from the office?
Yeah, beyond the business. Yeah. It's very easy to get overwhelmed in this business or to feel isolated in this business. And so I know people want to see that self-publishing success, but you need to have a good work-life balance, so that's what we wanted to do, an episode where we talk about what we do besides the books, what we do besides the business.
Yeah. And for me, it's a really easy way to link it with this podcast, because I started because of my garden. I ran a gardening blog when I started gardening, and the gardening blog led me to KDP eventually. So I kind of feel like my garden created this business in a way, because I would never have found KDP if it hadn't been for the blog. So I started back in, it would have been about 2017, something like that. And we started making over our garden in our old house, and it just sort of came from there. And it was a lot of fun, because we lived in London, and London houses have got very small gardens. I think in America you call them yards. Yep. We call them gardens, same thing though. And they're quite small. They can be like a tiny little square. And we were lucky that we had a fairly, they said it was a medium-sized garden, but to me it was pretty big compared to other London gardens. And it had nothing in it. It was just grass and a few trees. And we built a completely new garden. We kind of made different rooms. This is what my husband and I like doing. We like to visit gardens. There are lots of gardens here in the UK. Famous gardens like Sissinghurst or all these other different gardens. And we went to Sissinghurst in Kent, and that garden is divided into different garden rooms. And we wanted to create something similar. So that's what we did in our garden. And that's how it all started. So for me, what I do when I'm not book publishing is I go into the garden and breathe in some fresh air. That's what I like to do. And you're a bit similar to that, aren't you, Keith? You like gardening.
I am. I do. We do a vegetable garden, fruits and vegetables. And we've been doing it for years. And it's something that just up until probably the last couple of years, my wife really hasn't been as involved in. It's really been just kind of my pride and joy. But the last couple of years, since the grandkids have come along, she's definitely been more involved in that, and goes out and helps pick the tomatoes and the cucumbers and things like that. And I actually this year set up a raised garden bed for the grandkids, and it's their responsibility to water the strawberries and then they can get the fruits of their labor, pun intended. But they absolutely love it, and it's something that like you said, just getting out in the fresh air, it really helps me, especially if I'm running into what some people call writer's block. It's funny, people say there's no such thing as writer's block, and I am envious of those people that have never had to deal with it, but I've definitely dealt with writer's block. And taking a step away and putting yourself in a completely different mindset, it has worked wonders for me. And so just whether I'm sitting on the back deck looking at the garden, or I'm actually out there and I'm in the dirt and I'm picking things or weed eating or whatever, it's definitely very cathartic and helps kind of ground me, if you will, to understand that this is a business, but it's not my life. You know what I mean? Like there needs to be a good work-life balance, and I end up coming back to the business much in a much clearer mindset and recharged and ready to just like keep going and get back into it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's something about being outside in nature that just it's the perfect opposite of our business because we're
Right.
sitting in front of a computer screen all day
Mhm.
long, and we've got artificial light everywhere. And for me, going out in the garden, it's not just a way to get grounded, like you said. It's a way of getting inspiration as well, because there's never a moment when I go outside in the garden and I don't have an idea of something.
Right.
I tend to get ideas while I'm out in the garden as well. So, and it's I think it's the perfect antidote to publishing because they're both very different things, but yet they combine each other really
Yeah,
well, I
they
think.
do.
So I think for me there's nothing better than to be out in the fresh air and just looking and nurturing plants and things that grow, because also I find that having things growing and looking after them kind of puts everything in perspective. I
Right.
think
It
it,
does.
yeah, I think it kind of reminds you that things that you have to look after things for them to grow and that they can still die and then you have to start again. And it's that kind of circle of life really
And
that it reminds me of.
I say, and that's not unlike a book, you know,
Exactly.
you create it, but if you just create it and you just leave it out there and you're leaving it for, for organic sales and you're leaving it for, organic discovery, then it's a lot harder for it to flourish, if you will,
Yeah,
than if you're feeding it and you're taking care of it. It's the
yeah,
same thing with a book.
yeah,
There's a lot of similarities, I agree, that come with it. But I also like the fact that it helps it helps me just like realize in the grand scheme of things what's important, you know.
yeah,
If a tomato falls off the vine and it starts to rot or whatever, yes, that's sad, but it's not the end of the world. There's going to be another tomato. It's the
yeah,
same thing with our business. If a book doesn't do great or if it gets a 1-star review, if you take care of it, it will still survive. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your business because you got a 1-star review. It's not
yeah,
the end of your business because this book hasn't gotten any sales yet.
yeah.
Again, it's just one item in your business. It's not the whole thing. And
Mm.
so I agree. It's just and it's just nice to just sit back and just look at it and kind of just decompress with the stress that comes with this business. Um, and I promise the entire episode is not going to be all about analogies between a garden and your book, but there definitely are things that you can pull
Yeah,
from that. And I agree that in this business, there's a lot of people that are introverted, that don't like to go to conferences and don't like to do things like that. So having something, whether it's a garden or it's something else, you definitely need to have something besides your business, or you're going to get burnt out.
yeah,
And I know we've done episodes where we talk about burnout, but that's something that I cannot stress enough is that burnout is real. I think I can speak for both of us that we've both fallen victim of it.
yeah,
It's not something that that only happens once. I mean, it can happen multiple times. You're never free from it. There's
no,
there's always that possibility that if you dive too deep in, that you're going to get burnt out. And so
yeah,
having something besides your business to look forward to focus on or to take you away and kind of
mm,
escape from your business will not only help you mentally, but it will help your business because you come back with a fresh mind,
mm,
you know, uh, you know, less stress on your shoulders. Things things just look different when you
yeah.
take a step back.
And I think it's also because it's such a contrast to what we're doing. So, creating books or publishing books is very focused on one thing. It's very within ourselves, really. And
Right.
going outside in the garden it takes you out of yourself in a way. It kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's the opposite of what I'm doing in the office. I'm kind of looking after other stuff, and I'm not so much looking at what I'm creating. I'm watching things being created by themselves, because things grow without me really doing anything. But at the same time, I know you didn't want to have too many analogies, but it's exactly like books,
It
because
is.
yeah, because it's like, you're the more you look after your plants and your vegetables and what you're growing, the better the results will be.
Right.
And it's the same with books as well, because the more you look after them, and the more interested you are in your books and in what you're creating, and in the background of what you're creating. It's exactly the same with plants, because you can buy a really great plant in the garden center and it looks absolutely lovely, but if you plant it in the wrong spot, if it's too much light and it doesn't like light, or if it's too much acid soil and it doesn't like acid soil, you
Right.
have to find the right place. And with books, it's exactly the same. You have to make sure that your books are in the right place, in front of the right people,
Right.
that kind of thing. So for me, it's like, I do draw all these analogies from my gardening, and I think about it. I do that with anything, not just gardening. Anything that I do outside of work, I do see the similarities.
Right.
I think everything is connected in a way anyway. The whole of life. So it's like with everything, the more you put into it, the more you get out of it. So it's exactly the same for the business.
Yeah. One of the other things that I do, which is not going to be a surprise, is YouTube. And and what you said, you and I talked about it earlier, but is very true. One of the people that I follow, and he teaches how to grow YouTube channels and how to make your YouTube, business better. Um, he did a video recently, and everything he was saying was pertaining to YouTube and to having a YouTube channel, and yet I was pulling every aspect from it, and I'm like, that can go towards, me talking to an author, me talking to a publishing business owner. And so I'm actually, the video that's going to come out this Friday is very raw, because I didn't send it to my video editor, because I didn't plan on doing a video, but I thought it was something that viewers and authors and creators of books needs to know. And so again, like you were saying, it wasn't really had anything to do, the source didn't have anything to do with this business, with creating books, and yet I was able to to turn it to where it really was relevant. And it's funny when you look at your business a little bit differently, how many things can correlate with self-publishing books.
Absolutely. I find that a lot. I'm always comparing things like
Yeah.
that. So I'm not surprised at all that you found that in on another YouTube video. It can be anywhere. And I mean, just coming back to what we do outside of this business to maybe keep our heads clear and get more ideas and refresh our batteries. I'm trying to think of what else apart from gardening, but in the last year, I've been doing a lot on the house, because
Hmm.
we bought a new house. We moved, so we had to renovate it. It's 100 years old, so it's an old building,
Right.
and there's lots to do. And I understand that you're probably going to go through something similar as well. So I'm sure we can find a lot of analogies between doing stuff around the house and the same with the business. I do that all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I kind of see all the parallels that there are. And in a way, that's a good thing, because it
Hmm.
makes you realize sometimes where you're going wrong. Maybe you're not putting enough effort into a certain aspect of the business. So to me, I find that quite helpful to do something completely different. And I make sure that I take time off from the business to do something
Right.
different, because otherwise you just don't see the wood for the trees, because you're just too
Agreed.
stuck in it. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely important to take time off. It's definitely important to, again, take a step back. I mean, it could be something as simple as going shopping. or just, going into a library or walking a mall or whatever, you'd be surprised at how many times, and I'm sure this happens to you too, especially, when it comes to low content, no content books, that I get ideas
Yeah.
from other, not just other books that are out there, which I absolutely do, but just other things I see, interactions between people.
Mhm.
I might get ideas for characters in a book that I'm writing,
Yeah.
or I might think of, somebody will bring up, I'm going to say cricket, but they'll bring up some topic I'll hear, just not even being involved in that conversation, but I'll overhear it, and yet I'm like, that might be a good idea for a puzzle book, or that might be a good idea for a
Yeah.
book to look into, and then again diving into that topic. So
Mm.
once again, trying to step away from the business, but not necessarily always being able to shut your mind off to it,
Yeah.
but by stepping away, and it allows you to take in more of the world, I found, and to realize, that life is bigger than a keyboard. It's bigger than Amazon. And
Mm.
so, um, again, one of the many things I've said numerous times is that I think big difference between those people who are successful in self-publishing and those that aren't are people that quit before they get to that point.
Yeah.
But I think one of the main reasons why people quit is they get burnt out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, I think by taking that, I really, I can't stress enough. I think that it's important to set yourself, like a schedule, as far as like not just when things are due, but also, I'm going to work on my business from this time to this time. And then when the end date or end time shows up, walk away.
Mm.
It's very easy to get sucked back. Oh, let me create, one more book. Let me write one more chapter, whatever. It's very easy for that to continue, and then you get burnt out. And
Yeah.
so, by being your own advocate and saying no, for mental health and business, standpoint, I need to step away. You really are going to better your chances of not only being in this business longer, but because of that, a much better chance of seeing success.
Mm. I totally agree. I mean, it kind of reminded me of the other day we went, when you said about going shopping. That's another thing that we do outside of work.
Right.
But I found that I don't really switch off 100% because
No,
we
I don't
went
think I
shopping.
could.
No, we went shopping and there was a whole wall of books in our supermarket because they have a wall of books and magazines and everything. And one of the walls is just paperback books. And
Mhm.
I took a photograph of the whole wall because it struck me how the colors were all very similar. So all the book covers had very similar covers, but the colors, at least, not the covers were different.
Right.
They had different imagery, but the colors were so similar. It was mainly blues and a bit of green and some red, but
Right.
the blue really stood out. And I thought, wow, this is like you can really see what's in when when you're looking at color designs.
Right.
Book cover designs, and you see what colors they use. So I realized that I hadn't switched off from work, even going shopping, because I took the picture, and I'll actually probably post it on my Facebook page one of these days so people can see. You just notice things, when
Mhm.
you're out and about and you're in shops, you notice the colors that people use for their books. I looked inside the books as well, and I saw that a lot of them were coloring books, but they were slightly different. They were all minimalistic coloring books. So I saw another trend there. So you can
Trend. Yeah.
pick up trends as well when you're out and about. So even though the topic of this podcast is how we get away from from work, I think we actually never get away completely.
Well,
There's
and
always,
and I think part of it is, um and this is going to differ for the people listening and watching, is you and I've been in this business for many, many years. Whereas if someone is just starting out, it might be much easier to turn that mind off.
yeah.
Um, and I don't see it as a negative that we don't turn it off,
Mm.
because we're seeing things, that are going to help our business, but we don't typically we don't stop what we're doing. We're not in the middle of a conversation and hold on. And, it's something that we're observing, but we're still able to live our life, and we're still able to do things that we're enjoying besides the business. And in the end, the business ends up benefiting as well. But again, none of that would have been possible if we hadn't stepped away.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have seen that, and the example you gave with, the books being up on, the way they've been displayed that's a great example, because physical books, and you'll find this is why a lot of people can't get their books into stores, into physical stores, is because they have a finite amount of room, and so if they're not selling, they wouldn't have been up there. So that tells you they're not just random books that were put up there. These are books that are most likely selling, or they would have already replaced them by now.
Oh yeah, they were the top 30 books or whatever they were. What top, I don't know, maybe Amazon, I don't know, but they were the top. It would have been more than 30, the top selling books. So
Right.
definitely,
Probably top 50 or whatever.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought it was really curious. But actually, I know I didn't switch off completely, but in a way, you said this as well, it's not a negative. I think it's probably why I've been successful at it,
Exactly.
because, I don't switch off. I love it, actually. I quite enjoy thinking of new ideas, and I like to get inspired by things that I see when I'm not doing my work. And if I was doing my work, I probably wouldn't see it. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
the inspiration has to come from somewhere.
Right.
Yeah.
And you really, it was very subtle, but you said something that's super important that I cannot stress enough, is the fact that we enjoyed this business,
Mm.
and I've told my wife, and I think one of the things I love about this business is, even though I've been doing it for almost a decade, I'm still learning things. Things aren't stagnant. Things change, trends change. What search terms change. What someone calls this type of book now may not be how they type it in a year from now. And so because of that, I'm always learning. And I think when I stop learning something new and I stop enjoying it, that's when I'll stop doing it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important to be in this business for the long term, that it is something that you enjoy. There are people that jump into this business for the sole purpose of making money. And I never want to talk down to that aspect, because it's a business. I get it. But those are the people that leave fairly quickly, because this is not a get rich quick business.
Yeah.
And so they, and that's fine. They're not making the money they want to make as quickly as they want to make it. They move on. That's fine. But it's the people that are doing it for the passion, whether it's for writing or creating a puzzle book or a journal or whatever. Those are the people that I think will have a much better chance of seeing success, as long as they do keep that happy balance, and don't end up going so deep into it that they end up getting burnt out. Because those are the, like I said, those are the ones that have a much better chance of seeing success if they plan on being there for the long haul.
Yeah. I think I again totally agree with you, and I think you made a really good point. And I think that because we enjoy it, there's less likelihood of burning out. I mean,
Right.
we probably burn out creating YouTube videos,
Right.
because that is a different thing altogether.
Right.
But I don't think I would ever burn out creating a book, or looking at books, or getting ideas for books. I think that part of my brain is constantly ticking, and I haven't created enough books this year. I really want to create more, because the ideas are they're queuing up really. And I think that
Yeah.
is basically another reason why some people fail, because they haven't got that love of books. They have the love of money. And again, like you said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to earn money. That's why we're doing it as well. But there is a difference when you want to earn money quickly, and you don't really care what the product is. That's when I think there is a lot of failure, because if you don't care about a product, and you're not enjoying the process, and you're only doing it because you've heard that some people make a lot of money with it, I think you're setting yourself up to fail straight away. I
Agreed.
think
Yeah.
if you enjoy doing it, if you love the end result, the product, if you're really into it, and you just love learning more and more about it, it's very hard to burn out then, because you're doing what you enjoy, so you can't really burn out. And I think there's a much bigger chance of succeeding as well, because if you put a lot of love and passion and all the rest of it into what you're doing, I just can't see how someone can fail if they
Right.
do all that. So yeah, I think, the other thing we like to do when we're not working, and again, it's book related. There's a street in London which is just small bookshops, and they're old bookshops, and apparently J.K. Rowling based Diagon Alley and Harry Potter on this street in London. She didn't, apparently, and one of the bookstores has it in their window saying, it's got nothing to do with Diagon Alley. But why not just pretend? Because it's so
Right.
much fun to go through
Right.
that street and seeing all the little quirky bookshops. And there's books in there that you wouldn't even. They are like first editions, really
Hmm.
old books of I don't know, really Robinson Crusoe, or like really well-known books, and they've got all these really rare editions of all this. I love all that. I could spend all day there, and we do sometimes.
Yeah.
So I think you do have to do those things, and if they can relate to your business, so much the better. I think that
Right.
is a bonus really for us. We can step out of it, but then still be connected to it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things that, and I know you do as well, but one of the things I love to do outside of the business, spend time with my family. I mean, I know you spend it with,
Yeah.
with Darren, but spending it with my wife and kids and grandkids, and it never fails. We'll spend an evening together, or we'll go out to dinner, or we'll you know stay in and watch cartoons or whatever we do. And it's funny because I never come home feeling drained. I'm always more upbeat, but also almost always have an idea for a book,
Yeah.
whether it's a children's book, or a journal, or my youngest granddaughter, who's 2, she absolutely loves books, and so she'll bring a book over and have me read it, or she'll have her 4-year-old sister read it, and we'll sit there and just listen to these books, and I'm like, this is telling me what kids this age enjoy, you know. And so again, not only help me with puzzle books, or not puzzle books, and not only help me with children's books ideas, but coloring book ideas,
Yeah.
and just all kinds of things like that. But then also parents of that age group, I know what kind of books they're interested in buying,
Mm.
because they don't want to buy a book that's boring to read,
Yeah.
because if their kid likes it, they got to read it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so again, even just something as simple as hanging out with my family still ends up tying back to my business. But again, things I wouldn't have learned otherwise if I had just stayed in my office working on my computer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in a way that's why I think we're so lucky that we're doing this, because this is just it could never end. You never finish learning anything
Right.
in this business.
Exactly.
There's always something.
Yeah.
And I think as long as there's something still left to learn, I could never get bored with it. There's just so much out there. And I don't know where, I mean, if you haven't got that in you, if books don't really say anything to you and you're not interested, it's different. I don't think I could build a business on something that I'm not that interested in. In fact, I did actually, because I had a jewelry
Right. The
business and I
jewelry.
wasn't
Yeah.
that interested in it. And I think now, if I had been interested, I could have taken it to a different level. But I just wasn't, my heart just wasn't in it, whereas
Right.
my heart is in this. So
Yeah.
I think there is a definite way to success if you are actually passionate about what you're doing. Definitely. I think if you're not that passionate about it, if you're just doing it for the money, I don't know if it works out really. I
Yeah,
think,
I agree. I mean, do I think people can make money even if they don't love it? Absolutely.
yeah,
but do I see being a long-term business? Probably not unless you end up making enough money to where you can hire someone else to do all the nitty-gritty part and you just,
Yeah.
reap the benefits, and that's fine. I mean, that's definitely a business model. But as far as, if you're going to be in it as, almost a decade like I have, and, as long as Nuri has been here, I can't imagine being in at the ground level, still creating the books if you don't enjoy it,
Yeah.
still running the ads, if you're running ads, still doing all the business aspect of it if you don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think that you definitely need to, as this topic, says, you do need to take time away. You need to, and I step away. I've never stepped away from my book business for probably more than a week, usually less than that. If I like around the holidays, I'll take maybe a week off. Usually it's probably like, 5 days. Uh, Now the YouTube channel, and don't get me wrong, I love my YouTube subscribers and viewers. But that one, it's a lot easier for me to get burnt out and to get just tired.
mm,
I mean, I've taken as much as, a month or two off over the years doing that. But when it comes to my actual book business, I enjoy it too much.
yeah.
I don't think I could.
And when we were talking earlier, you said something that really struck a chord with me, and you said we're not really YouTubers. Our business isn't YouTube. We're
Right.
not just YouTubers. YouTube is a very, very small part of our business, and our
Right.
main business is books and publishing. So I think, it's what your passion is in and what you enjoy doing. And I know there are a lot of business people who run different businesses, and they might not have a passion for the businesses they run, and they're still able to run them really well. And that is because they've got a passion for business.
Right.
They are passionate about running business as well. So
Hmm.
there's passion in there somewhere. I think
Right.
you can't run a business if there's not a passion for something, whether that is the actual business, whether it's in the product you produce, or whether it's in the running of the whole
Right.
thing. So I think yeah, how to get away from it. I don't know. I don't know if we ever do really get away from it, but we get away from it enough that we make it a positive rather than a negative. I think,
Yeah.
it's always a positive to come back to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest, it's not unheard of for me on Christmas Day to have my notes open on my phone, and
Mm,
I'm like taking little notes. As much
mm,
as I'm enjoying every moment with my family, that doesn't mean ideas don't come in.
yeah,
I can't turn off that part of
yeah,
my, because I enjoy it, because I
mm,
love the business. Because I care,
yeah,
I can't turn it off. You
yeah,
know, I can step away from it, which is like, like you said, spending time with the family, going on walks, going out in the garden or whatever. I'm stepping away from it. But like you said, I really can't turn it off completely because I care. And I think that's the bottom line is, and I think, like you said earlier, that's why we're seeing the success that we do, is because we care about the business and we care about what we create. We care about
yeah,
um we care about not just what we create, but I think, and this is kind of what my video this week coming up is going to be about, is we care about the end user. We care about
mm,
the lives that get touched
mm,
and affected by the books that we create. And
mm,
it's very easy to forget about that aspect,
yeah,
because we spend so much time talking about the royalties and what should I price it and the algorithm and all that other stuff. And sometimes it's hard to forget that that's a person spending their real money on
mm,
your book. So even if you only sell one, that's one person's life you've impacted. And
yeah,
so that it's that kind of stuff that I just love about this business. And that's
yeah.
why I don't think I could officially turn it off, completely.
I think you've just made another really important point. We talk a lot about the actual practical side of it, the
Hmm.
publishing, the
Right.
royalties, what goes with it, but we don't really talk so much about our audience, who buys our books, that is probably the most important topic. And
Right.
for me personally, I always think of my audience as as me, really, because I love books, because I've got an interest in it. So I kind of always think that my audience probably is the same, and that might not be the case. They might be slightly different. But I think that helps. It helps to visualize who your audience is. Who are you doing this for? Who are you creating the books for? And I think that is, you just made a really important point there.
Yeah, I think, matter of fact, I think that should be an idea for a future episode, so we can dive
Yes.
into that a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Talk about our audience.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another great mastermind, Nuria. Once again, a huge thank you to all our listeners and viewers who came to tag along. If you enjoyed today's mastermind, please consider following or subscribing to the podcast, and maybe even leave us a review and let us know what you thought. Until next time, I'm Keith Wheeler.
And I'm Nuria Corby.
Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining the Mastermind today. Be sure to follow the podcast on your platform of choice and tell a friend who would enjoy it too. Your support is greatly appreciated. This has been the Masterminding Success Podcast.